sometimes that they're not prepared for that. Cole's not prepared for that, all right? We see what happens to the rest of his body as soon as he goes into that hip flexion. So at that point, I'm going to begin to introduce a step over concept to him. I'm going to say, okay, instead of just driving your knee up, what I want this time is I just want you to step over your ankle. So if we're marching, all he's doing is stepping over that opposite ankle. So I'm able to keep everything else locked in. Once I see that he's able to do that, okay, now let's go through calf step overs. I just want you to step over that calf and into the next stride. And then we'll do a knee step over. So we'll slowly work our way up, and then I can assess, all right, here's where we're at, or we're not quite there yet. So we'll start here with the PVC drills. Now, I'm using this here for the mock drills or the form running drills. I'll also use this from a sprint position. I'll also go through these drills holding that PVC overhead and focusing on maintaining that posture as we go through that, but that's a little further down the line. The next drill that I'm going to go through is just called a med ball punch. All right, again, we're just using a 4-6 pound med ball, nothing that's really heavy. We're going to hold it right in front of our abdomen. All right, so I'm going to set up here, and all I tell them is, listen, I just want you to accelerate out. Don't worry about the acceleration position. That's not the focus here. But once we get up to that upright position and we're running, this isn't top speed, but once we are running, I want them to hold that for about 30 yards. The reason that I like this is the cue is hit the ball with your knees. Now they're not going to hit it, but our goal is we want to drive our knees up to the ball. The things that happen that I truly like is, one, in order to get that knee height to drive toward the ball, I have to sacrifice some backside mechanics, okay? I can't swing my foot all the way up here and bring it all the way up here in between steps. So I'm going to get rid of a little bit of this heel flick in the back in order to rebound that knee right back up in front. The other thing is, because of that, because we are getting that knee drive, we're able to get the hips in a nice set position and not get into that anterior tilt. So our knees are upright, which then puts our upper body in a good position. Again, if I see that there's an issue, if I see that when we go through our accelerations, they're having problems getting up tall, I'm going to find a drill that allows them to, or forces them into that position, instead of just trying to tell them to get into it over and over and over again. Now, the other drill that we'll use with the med ball, similar to the PVC pipe, we'll hold the med ball up overhead as we go through our accelerate, or as we go through our upright mechanics. Now, I like this for a couple of different reasons. The first reason is we are working on our hip height off the ground, okay? The hip height is extremely important. When we are able to maintain that good height off the ground, it shortens my ground contact time. So if my hips are down low here, and I take that step, my step's going to land out in front, it's got to travel all the way back behind me before it can come off the ground. If I'm able to maintain an optimal hip height off the ground, when I go into that next step, it's very short, very brief before we are able to cycle back up behind us. All right, so the goal is to maintain that optimal hip height. The other reason why I like the overhead holds with the med ball is we know that when we get into an upright position, the majority of the force that we create is a vertical force. A lot of the horizontal forces are dissipated at this point. All we're trying to do is we're trying to defy gravity. I'm trying to prevent my hips from dropping. I'm trying to prevent any type of braking force. And so by adding just 4 to 6 pounds overhead, I've got to create just a little more force with each step in order to stay upright. After I go through that, I'll take the med ball off. I'll say, okay, I want you to sprint as fast as you can to the 50. They'll tell me every time, Coach, I feel light. I feel like I got good bounce. I make sure not to tell the football coach that because he'll just call them fairy. But they feel like they have a little more bounce in their step as we go through that. So we're going to go through the med ball drills. Then the last drill that we're going to go through, or the last implement that I'm going to use, are these wicket drills. Okay, all this is a 6-inch hurdle. Now, I will set these up roughly about 20 yards out from their starting position, so they have plenty of room to accelerate to their top speed. And then the distance between hurdles depends on a number of factors. And so what I'll typically do is I'll set up one set of wickets that are 4 feet apart. Each set is 4 feet apart. Then I'll come over a couple yards, I'll set up another set of wickets that have 4.5 feet between them. Another set of wickets that have 5 feet between them. And I'll work up. I'll go somewhere from 4 to 6. Now I do this because, one, everybody has a different stride length. But two, based on the day, each athlete might have to adjust a little bit. So I might have one guy who's typically at the 5-foot distance, but say he's sore from the basketball game the night before from playing pickup, or he's tired, or for some reason things just aren't going well for him. Well, I might have to move him down a set of hurdles. His stride length just isn't what it normally is. And this is something that I don't want to put them in a situation that they're not used to. Because if we get into that extended position, that eccentric hamstring load is going to be too much. You are putting too much stress on the hamstrings at that point. So I'd rather start small and work up. So again, as we go through this drill, the thing that I like about it is it forces us to get that step over capability. We have to get up and over that hurdle, which puts our hips in a nice position. It forces us to get up tall. But the other reason that I like this, that we don't have when we go through, say, maybe our med ball punches, I have a barrier in front of me. So I can't allow that foot to cast out in front. Otherwise, I'm going to step on one of the hurdles. There is a stopping point for every stride. I've got to come down in front of that hurdle before I go up and over the next one. So as we've gone, and here's a couple of other gentlemen going through this. So as we go through this, one of the things that I talk about is I want you guys to pretend like you're stepping over tall grass. You know, that is our cue, especially once we get off the wickets. We want to act like we're stepping over tall grass. We're getting that good stride. One thing that I feel like we, especially with speed training, we have to take advantage of the mind's eye. We have to take advantage of our ability to create pictures and concepts for them. You know, we talked earlier about them being visual learners. When we set up our cues have to be set up in a way that it creates a mental picture. I like to use cues also that almost have an illustration themselves, like pop, snap, punch. You know, as we go through these acceleration drills, you'll constantly hear me pop, 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 pop as they go down the line. That's what I want. I want a quick pop down and up off the ground. So we have to use that ability to create that picture for them. So when it comes to cueing, and when it comes to introducing these drills, my whole thought process is I'm going to introduce the drill, and I'm going to introduce the cue that I am most often going to use as we go through this. Now we know, studies show that one cue can be up to 85% effective. As soon as you incorporate a second cue into the same drill, your effectiveness rate on that cue drops to 30%. And so, I want to figure out what one cue is going to help me best with this. Now, if I start to notice that there are individuals within the group that just aren't picking up on it, aren't able to do what I need them to do, I'm going to pull them off to the side and give them a second cue. Okay, pop didn't work for you. Let's try something else. Let's try, instead of pop off the ground, I want you to grab the turf and throw it back behind you. Something else to create that image for them. But I'm not going to say it to the whole group, because then I risk losing some of the guys that I had on the front end that really took to the first cue. So I'm going to start with the whole, and then I'm just going to move down to parts within it. But when it comes to the drills themselves, I take a very much a part-whole approach. We're going to focus on the parts, and then go to the sum of those parts. Go to that whole. So after we've implemented these drills and we've gone through a number of these things, it's just like what we would do within our weight room. You know, we have to layer these movements. We have to begin to tier this system. This week I'm going to get my 8th graders for the first time, and I love getting my 8th graders in. I love this week every year. One, because I feel like I'm the most feared person on campus. The 8th graders know that if they walk into my room and they touch